What if I told you that your brain is like downloading the themes, the character flaws, and the central conflict of an entire 400-page novel in roughly 300 milliseconds?
Which is literally the exact time it takes you to blink.
Right. I mean, it sounds like a magic trick or maybe some kind of futuristic neural implant.
It does, but it's actually just a deeply ingrained biological reality. Your visual processing centers are just, well, they're just that fast.
Yeah, because usually when we think about how to create a good book summary, we picture this very manual, totally conscious process, you know?
Right, exactly. We imagine someone's sitting at a desk.
Painstakingly reading through hundreds of pages with a highlighter in hand, mapping out the character arcs, outlining the rising action.
Finding the climax and then trying to compress all of that narrative weight into one neat, digestible paragraph on the back cover.
Exactly. We tend to view summarizing as this purely textual exercise.
Which is a very logical way to approach it, I mean.
Yeah.
We view it as an act of translation, taking long-form data, processing it in our frontal lobe, and outputting short-form data.
Right. It's deliberate.
Yeah, it's deliberate, it's slow,
Mhm.
and it requires a massive amount of cognitive load. But, human beings are primarily visual creatures.
Oh, totally.
Long before we had the printing press, long before written language even existed, our survival depended on our ability to instantly summarize our environment.
Just through visual cues, like we had to look at a rustling bush or the color of the sky or the posture of an animal and instantly deduce a whole story.
Exactly. Is that a predator? Is a storm coming?
We were literally summarizing complex environmental data in a fraction of a second just to stay alive.
Precisely. And that exact same evolutionary hardware is still running inside your head right now.
Which is wild to think about.
It really is. When your eyes sweep across a bookshelf, or when you are like scrolling past a thumbnail on a screen, your brain isn't just looking at pretty colors.
Right.
It is applying that exact same ancient survival mechanism to modern visual design. It's dissecting the imagery, the typography, the spatial arrangement.
All those hidden patterns.
Yes, to deliver a complete narrative package to your subconscious before you ever even consciously read the title.
And that is exactly the mission of today's deep dive. For those of you listening who love to gather knowledge quickly but thoroughly.
The people who want that aha moment without feeling bogged down by information overload.
Exactly. We are going to perform a forensic analysis today. We have a single artifact on the table in front of us, and it's the cover image for Ana Huang's book, King of Gluttony.
Right. And our goal here is to completely reverse engineer this image. We want to extract every conceivable piece of data from it.
Moving from the overt textual clues right down to the psychological implications of the layout.
And even the subliminal cues hidden in the background. Because we want to show you how publishers and, frankly, incredibly talented designers silently implant an entire narrative architecture into your brain.
Okay, so let's start with the most obvious layer before we get into the psychology of the imagery. I'm looking at the explicit text on this cover, and it's very strategically hierarchical.
It really is.
Right. At the very top, nestled around the small golden crown, we have Kings of Sin and Book 6. And then below that, dominating the upper middle space, is the main title, King of Gluttony.
Right, in the center.
Yeah. Then, underneath the central artwork, there's a banner declaring #1 New York Times bestselling author, and anchoring the entire bottom in massive bold letters is the author's name, Ana Huang.
So the textual framework alone is doing an incredible amount of heavy lifting here.
Oh, for sure.
But let's actually look at the functional purpose of that bottom half first.
Yeah.
The phrase #1 New York Times bestselling author is not merely a badge of honor for the author.
I mean, though it certainly is that.
True. But from a design and marketing perspective, it functions as an incredibly powerful psychological heuristic.
A heuristic being, like a mental shortcut, right? Because when I walk into a bookstore or I'm browsing online, I'm suffering from massive decision fatigue.
We all are.
There are millions of books. I need a reason to pick this specific one.
Exactly. When you are trying to create a good book summary in the mind of a potential reader, establishing trust is the absolute first hurdle.
Right. If I don't trust the creator, I'm out.
Exactly. If they don't trust the creator, they won't invest the time to decipher the rest of the cover. That single line of text instantly sets expectations of commercial viability.
It tells the reader's brain, like, millions of other people have vetted this creator, and the preeminent literary institution in the country has verified it.
It's the ultimate social proof.
It's like seeing a movie poster that says, from the director of Inception. You aren't just buying a ticket to a new movie.
You're buying a ticket to a guaranteed level of execution.
Yes. You know the caliber of the experience you are signing up for.
It implies a massive built-in audience, a polished editorial process, and typically highly engaging, high-stakes drama. It de-risks the purchase.
Because you aren't taking a gamble on an unknown entity.
Right. You are investing in a proven commodity. And notice how large the author's name is at the bottom. Ana Huang is arguably the heaviest visual element on the cover outside of the title itself.
Right. The brand of the author is just as important as the narrative itself.
Exactly.
I see that. But what really grabs me, what I think is doing the most fascinating narrative work in the text, is way up at the top. We have this series title, Kings of Sin, and its specific modifier, Book 6.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I see a movie poster for a 6th Fast and Furious or a 6th Marvel movie, I instantly have a summary of the vibe in my head.
You know the rules of the physics in that
Okay,
work.
totally. So Book 6 promises momentum. I want to dig into the words Kings of Sin, smashed right next to each other.
It is such a brilliant juxtaposition. If we break down the sociology of those two words, we uncover the core tension of the entire franchise.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, the word king carries massive historical and psychological weight. It implies absolute authority, immense wealth, and ruling class dynamics.
And heavily male-dominated power structures, usually.
Exactly. A king operates above the law. Historically, a king creates the law by divine right. It is a position of untouchable elevation and perfect order.
It's control, like total, absolute control over your environment and the people in it.
Yes. But then, the designer immediately pairs that concept of absolute control with the word sin.
Oh, wow.
And sin promises the exact opposite of order. It represents moral ambiguity, transgression, temptation, a lack of control, and ultimately a fall from grace.
So by combining them, the cover tells you that these characters are men who possess absolute, untouchable power in the external mortal realm.
But are entirely enslaved by their internal moral failings.
That is so cool. So without reading a single page, I already know that the conflict in this book is not going to be about a guy struggling to pay his rent or fighting a dragon.
Right, the threat isn't external.
The threat is entirely internal. It's a powerful man whose biggest enemy is his own nature.
Which is why the Book 6 placement, intertwined with that little crown, is so comforting to the reader. The publisher is summarizing a promise.
That this isn't just a random, chaotic story.
Exactly. This is part of a grander, meticulously planned architectural narrative based on the 7 deadly sins. If it is Book 6, the reader subconsciously knows there are at least 7 books.
They know it's a complete set.
Yes. Even if the content is dark and messy, which sin definitely implies, the structure of the reading experience is safe and reliable.
Okay, so we've established the overarching framework. We have a world of powerful, wealthy men brought low by fatal internal flaws.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have to look at the specific installment. The title of this specific book is King of Gluttony.
And this title is rendered in incredibly large, elegant, gold foil serif typography. It commands the absolute center of the visual real estate.
Okay, let me stop you right there, because
Yeah.
this is where I start having a problem with the design choices. Or at least I need you to explain the logic to me here.
Okay, what's the problem?
The word gluttony is visceral. It's a heavy, guttural word, just saying it out loud. Gluttony. It feels ugly.
It is an inherently ugly concept, yeah.
Right. In a modern psychological narrative, gluttony is rarely just about eating too much food.
No, it is the sin of total excess.
Mm.
It is an insatiable appetite.
Exactly. It is the terrifying, bottomless condition of wanting more and never, ever being satisfied, no matter how much of the world you consume.
It really is.
So it's a black hole. It's messy. It implies stains and crumbs and a complete lack of self-control. So I'm looking at this beautiful, pristine gold font. If wrath is inherently angry and pride is arrogant, why did the designer use the cleanest, sharpest, most flawless font possible for the messiest sin?
That is a great observation.
The letters are gold foil. They have these sharp, elegant little tails on the ends. There's absolutely nothing messy about this font. It feels like a contradiction. Why not use a font that looks distressed or dripping or chaotic?
Well, what you are reacting to is exactly what makes this design a masterpiece of visual storytelling.
Really?
Yes. The tension between the meaning of the word and the style of the typography is completely intentional. If they used a messy, dripping font, it would be too literal.
Oh, I see. It would look like a horror novel or a book about a literal monster.
Right, it would look like a Halloween poster.
Yeah, true.
But remember the first word? King. This character doesn't want the world to know he is a glutton. The typography represents his facade.
Oh.
The clean, pristine gold foil lettering contrasts sharply with the destructive, out-of-control nature of gluttony. It implies a character who presents an incredibly polished, expensive, meticulously controlled exterior to society.
So the gold foil represents the wealth, the status, the impenetrable armor of the ruling class.
Exactly. And the word itself represents the rot underneath the armor.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see it now. The font is the bespoke $3,000 suit he wears. The word gluttony is the broken soul wearing the suit.
Beautifully articulated. And let's look closer at the specific style of that font, too. It is a serif font.
Right, those little tails and strokes I mentioned at the ends of the letters, those are called serifs.
Yes. And historically, serif fonts have been used to convey tradition, establishment, respectability, and institutional authority.
So it's the typography of old law books, banking institutions, and historical archives.
Exactly. It's the font that says, we have old money and we've been running things for centuries.
The visual language is strictly old world power, actively masking an uncontrollable modern appetite.
Yes. And that internal contradiction, a man who has everything but is satisfied by nothing, who looks perfect but is rotting inside, that is what drives the narrative.
Okay, so the text gives us the who, a king with a polished facade, and the why, an insatiable inner void. But a psychological profile isn't a plot. The cover has to give us the what. It has to give us the specific plot devices that will force this character's flaw out into the open.
Right, the inciting incident, essentially.
And that brings us to the central imagery, the dominant visual cluster on the lower half of the cover.
We are looking at a highly specific arrangement of physical artifacts here. We have a sealed envelope appearing to be made of heavy textured cream paper.
Yeah, and it's closed with a deep red wax seal, and stamped into that wax is a tiny detailed crown.
Then resting diagonally across the envelope is an ornate fountain pen with a dark barrel and gold accents.
And then crucially, the bottom left corner of the envelope is actively catching fire, with bright orange and red embers scattering outward into the white space.
Yes.
So I want to treat this like a forensic crime scene photo. Let's unpack the artifacts of order first before we get to the fire. We have the envelope, the wax seal, and the fountain pen.
Okay.
It is 2026. Nobody uses a wax seal and a fountain pen to send a casual text message or a quick email.
No, absolutely not. These are instruments of extreme, almost archaic formality.
They are the tools of permanence and ritual. Like, think about the physical act of using a wax seal. You have to melt the wax, let it drip, press the cold Maya signet ring into the hot wax, and wait for it to harden.
It is a deliberate, time-consuming process. It creates a physical, tamper-evident barrier.
And when you sit down with a fountain pen to sign a document, you are engaging in a highly formalized act of commitment.
So what does that summarize about the plot? Because to me, it strongly suggests a contract.
Totally. It screams that the characters are trying to contain their relationship or their circumstances within a legally or socially binding box.
Maybe a high society invitation, a legal marriage of convenience, or a highly sensitive non-disclosure agreement.
It is undeniably an arrangement, and the fact that the wax seal bears a crown ties this correspondence directly back to the king theme of the title.
This isn't just a letter from a friend. It is a royal decree, or, in a modern context, a billionaire's ironclad corporate contract.
The visual summary here is entirely about rules, boundaries, and controlled environments.
But then the element of chaos, the fire, the bottom corner of this incredibly formal binding contract is quite literally going up in flames.
Right. The fire is the active verb in this visual sentence. Everything else is static, but the fire is moving, and what does fire do? It consumes.
Wait, let me challenge that connection for a second,
Yeah.
because when I think of fire, I usually think of passion or destruction or anger, like fiery wrath.
Sure.
How does a burning letter specifically represent the sin of gluttony? Isn't it a bit of a stretch? I mean, how do we know this isn't the cover for the King of Wrath?
That is a highly perceptive question, and it really speaks to the layered nature of visual symbolism. You are correct that fire universally represents destruction and heat.
Right.
However, context is everything. In the context of a title called King of Gluttony, the destructive nature of fire takes on a specific flavor, which is consumption. Fire does not just destroy, it eats. It breathes. It requires constant fuel to survive, and it will expand as long as there is material to consume. It is an insatiable chemical reaction.
So it has an appetite, an unfillable appetite. The more it eats, the bigger it gets, just like gluttony.
Precisely. The burning of the formal document summarizes the destruction of the contract by an insatiable force.
So the visual summary is basically a strict, sterile, highly controlled business arrangement is consumed by an uncontrollable appetite.
Yes, and the physics of the burn are very telling too. The fire is starting at the edge, working its way inward toward the seal. It is an active burn. We actually see the embers flying off the page.
It's happening right now.
Mhm.
It's not a picture of ashes. It's a picture of the moment the rules are broken.
It implies immediacy. The destruction of order is actively occurring. It summarizes a narrative where a highly controlled arrangement is actively being derailed.
Let's talk about the colors of that derailment, too, because I think the contrast is doing a lot of subconscious work here.
Oh, absolutely.
The entire background of the cover-like, the canvas that all these objects are resting on, is this pure, almost blinding white. It looks like polished marble or high-end silk. It's flawless.
And then you introduce the violent red of the wax seal and the bright, searing orange of the fire.
Color theory is one of the most powerful tools a designer has to bypass the conscious mind.
Because the vast expanse of white signifies sterility, cleanliness, ultimate control, and perhaps a complete lack of emotional warmth.
It is a pristine, untouchable world. The king's world.
Right, it's a hospital room or an art gallery where you can't touch anything.
Exactly. And into that sterile environment, the designer introduces red and orange. Across every human culture, red and orange are universally associated with danger, blood, passion, heat, and warning.
Those colors are physically stimulating, right? They actually raise the viewer's heart rate slightly.
They do. So the visual summary is suggesting a pristine, perfectly ordered world being violently disrupted by a dangerous, consuming force.
The fire is ruining the perfect white space, just like the gluttony is ruining the perfect facade of the king.
It is a profound visual metaphor for both the character's internal psychological state and the external plot of the novel, delivered simultaneously through color contrast.
Okay, so we've got the text, the typography, the contract, and the fire. That feels like a pretty comprehensive summary right there.
You'd think so, but there's more.
Right, because earlier you mentioned subliminal cues woven into the background. And honestly, looking at this cover the first time, I just saw white space.
Most people do.
But you're telling me there is an entire setting and character dynamic hidden back there.
I am. If you look closely at that expansive white background we just discussed, it is not actually blank. There are extremely faint, almost invisible graphics woven into the texture of the white.
It really is a masterclass in subtlety. Let's look at the very bottom, just above and behind the author's name.
Okay, I have to squint, but yes. There is a silhouette. It looks like buildings. Skyscrapers.
It's like a very faint gray watermark embedded in the white background.
And that faint cityscape is doing crucial narrative grounding. Without that watermark, think about the other symbols we have. A wax seal, a fountain pen, a golden crown, and the title King.
If a reader saw only those elements, what genre would they assume this book belongs to?
Historical fiction, for sure. I would immediately assume this is about an actual monarch in the 18th century. Swords, castles, arranged royal marriages.
Exactly. It would create a genre mix-up. But in a fraction of a second, that faint watermark of a modern metropolis tells your brain, do not expect horses and castles.
It creates a summary of modern-day royalty.
It tells the reader that the kingdom in this story is a massive modern city. These characters are billionaires, corporate titans, men who rule from glass skyscrapers and boardrooms, not stone keeps.
It completely updates the mythology of the monarchy into the framework of hypercapitalism.
That is so efficient. It answers the where and when without using a single word.
But here's the part of the design that absolutely blows my mind, because it is so incredibly sneaky. Let's look at the rest of the faint background wallpaper. On the top left, swirling around the Kings of Sin text, there is delicate line art of florals. They look like roses, or perhaps peonies.
Very soft, very romantic, heavily leaning into traditionally feminine tropes.
They represent fragility, organic beauty, vulnerability, and growth. They're the complete antithesis of the sterile skyscraper cityscape.
And they contrast sharply with the hard, metallic gold typography of the title.
Okay, flowers on a romance novel cover. Not super shocking, right?
Right.
But then you look at the middle right side of the cover. Directly opposite the delicate flowers, if you stare into the negative white space, there is a face.
A face.
Yes, a stylized, snarling face woven into the background texture.
Oh my gosh, it is a beast.
It is. It looks like a lion or some kind of feral mythological predator. The snout is wrinkled, the teeth are bared, the mane is flaring out into the white space. It is incredibly aggressive.
Now let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
Are you sure people actually notice a faint watermark of a lion? Isn't it possible that this is just pareidolia?
Good.
Yeah, the psychological phenomenon where humans see faces in random patterns, like seeing Jesus in a piece of burnt toast or a bunny in a cloud. Are we just reading too much into a random smudge of texture?
That is a very valid skepticism.
Yeah.
The human brain is heavily wired for facial recognition, and we do often project faces onto random static.
Right.
However, in the context of professional high-end commercial design, there are no random smudges. Every pixel is a deliberate choice.
I see.
The positioning of the beast, staring directly across the cover at the delicate florals, is a highly intentional composition.
So it's not a mistake. The cover designer purposefully hid a feral predator in the wallpaper.
Yes. And by placing the delicate florals in direct opposition to the snarling beast, the designer is explicitly hinting at a very specific narrative archetype.
Beauty and the Beast?
Precisely. It is one of the oldest, most deeply ingrained narrative archetypes in human history. And it is sitting right there on the cover, almost entirely invisible until you actively look for it.
But if it's almost invisible, what's the point? Like, if I'm just scrolling past this on my phone while waiting for a coffee, I am definitely not consciously seeing a faint watermark of a lion's snout.
This is where we get into the mechanics of subconscious priming, which is arguably the most fascinating part of how our visual processing system works.
Okay, tell me more.
You have to understand how your eyes take in an image. When you glance at a cover on your phone, your fovea, the center of your vision that focuses on sharp detail, is likely reading the dark, high-contrast text of the title.
And looking at the bright orange fire.
Right. Your conscious attention is locked onto the shiny gold words and the flames. But your peripheral vision is simultaneously absorbing the rest of the canvas.
And peripheral vision works differently.
Yes. Your peripheral vision isn't great at reading text, but it is incredibly highly attuned to picking up shapes, shadows, and specifically biological threats like faces or predators.
Because, evolutionarily speaking, if a lion is sneaking up on me in my periphery, I need to know about it right now.
Exactly. So your peripheral vision detects the shape of the snarling beast and the soft shapes of the flowers.
It bypasses the slow, analytical processing of your frontal lobe.
And feeds that raw shape data directly to the amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for emotional responses and threat detection.
That is wild. So my brain sees the lion even if I don't realize I've seen it.
Yes. Your subconscious stitches the whole thing together. The beast reinforces everything we deduced about the gluttony and the fire.
The feral nature of the sin is embodied by the hidden lion.
It is the primal, animalistic urge hiding behind the white marble facade of modern society.
And it is paired against something fragile and beautiful, suggesting a romance where one party is dangerous and consuming, and the other is delicate, but perhaps possesses the power to tame the beast.
So, without ever knowing why, you walk away from glancing at this cover with a feeling.
I might say, oh, it looks like a dark, modern romance with a grumpy sunshine dynamic, without ever being able to articulate how I know that.
Exactly. The visual design bypassed your conscious analysis and directly implanted the vibe into your subconscious.
It is essentially a psychological magic trick.
It really is. The designer creates a profound, multi-layered summary by speaking to two different parts of your brain at the exact same time.
The conscious analytical brain reads King of Gluttony and analyzes the formal contract burning in the fire.
While the subconscious emotional brain detects the modern city, the delicate flowers, and the hidden predator, and it merges all of those feelings together.
That is just incredible. Okay, I think we have pulled every possible thread from this single image. We've gone from the explicit text to the color theory, the historical artifacts, and the subliminal psychological priming.
We really covered it all.
Let's put this all together. Let's do the final synthesis.
Okay.
Let's write the back of the book blurb based purely on the forensic evidence we just extracted.
I think we have more than enough data to reconstruct the narrative arc.
Okay, here we go. Based purely on the visual data, here is what King of Gluttony is about. It is the story of a modern-day ruling class elite. A billionaire titan who rules a massive metropolis from a pristine, perfectly controlled environment.
But this modern king is driven by an insatiable, consuming internal void. He hides a feral, beast-like nature behind a facade of flawless, golden perfection.
This king enters into a highly formal, strictly structured, legally binding arrangement represented by the sealed letter and the old world pen.
It is likely a contract meant to control his world, or perhaps to acquire something delicate and beautiful, represented by the florals.
Ultimately, however, the rigid arrangement cannot contain his voracious nature. The sterile, controlled contract is consumed by unpredictable, passionate chaos.
The fire destroys the rules, leading to a relationship dynamic that is both incredibly delicate and completely feral.
And we just wrote the summary. We extracted the setting, the character flaws, the inciting incident, and the central romance trope without reading a single word of the actual story.
It perfectly demonstrates the incredible density of information that can be packed into visual symbols.
Psychology, color theory, historical iconography, and typography are all working in perfect concert to summarize a massive narrative in roughly 300 milliseconds.
So why does all of this matter for you, the listener?
Right. We know you love to process information efficiently, you want to understand the world deeply, but you don't have time to read every single manual.
Well, we've just shown you the ultimate hack for doing exactly that, because this doesn't just apply to romance novels.
The next time you look at a movie poster, a political advertisement, a corporate logo, or even a billboard on the highway, pause for just 3 seconds.
Force your conscious brain to look at what your subconscious is absorbing.
Look past the literal text. Ask yourself, why did they choose that specific font? Is it a serif font trying to project old world authority, or a sleek, modern font trying to project innovation?
Why that specific color? What is hiding in the negative space in the background?
Once you learn to read the visual language, you will start to see these hidden narrative summaries everywhere. You'll see exactly how designers, marketers, and storytellers are quietly talking to your amygdala.
It is a powerful lens through which to view the media we consume daily. We are constantly swimming in a sea of visual summaries. We just need to learn how to open our eyes and read them consciously.
Which leaves me with a final, somewhat provocative thought for you to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive.
Oh, I like a provocative thought.
If a book cover designer can so effectively and efficiently summarize an entire universe of themes, internal conflicts, and resolutions through carefully chosen symbols, colors, and textures.
What visual symbols and artifacts are you projecting in your own life right now?
That is a very interesting application of this forensic framework, applying it to the personal brand.
Right. Think about it. The clothes you choose to wear, the specific objects you keep on your desk at work, the aesthetic of your living space.
Even the background you use when you present yourself on a video call. You are constantly curating a visual summary of yourself for the people around you.
You are your own cover designer.
And the people interacting with you are processing that summary in 300 milliseconds.
Exactly.
So, what would a stranger conclude about the summary of your current chapter based solely on the cover you present to the world?
Are you projecting the flawless gold foil of perfect control?
Are you wearing the crisp serifs of tradition and authority? Are there hidden feral beasts in your background?
Or is there a fire starting at the edge of your envelope?
Something to think about until next time.